Great to see you. Good to chat. I really enjoyed the tour you did yesterday, and it gave me a really good sense of how you get product out the door and how you get quality out of the door. And given the JV and the desire to move manufacturing back to the US, that's really important. Tell me a little bit about the systems that you have in place to ensure quality and on-time delivery and how you think they can easily scale.
So there's a few things there. That's a big project for us, and we've been working on that for many years. So right now it's just the fruit of all that work coming to term, right? So one of the first things that we looked at is standardization of processes. So we have documentation for every single module that we build, from engineering all the way to cut to this length, use this type of screw, flathead versus countersunk. All these details are documented in a platform that all of our assemblers have access to. So that would be the first thing, right? So when you're talking about scalability, it gives us the ability to be able to hire people quickly and get them to be productive from the beginning. They have access to these work instructions and can just build anything from day one. So that's continuously being updated, version control, all the things, you know, you're familiar with all that. Another big piece, and some of the beautiful thing about quality is that it's never done. You're always looking for ways of improvement. One of the things that we have currently ongoing is a metric that we call seamless installs. So seamless installs is one of the most important targets for the company. It's the way that we measure the successful handshake between department to department, all the way to the end customer. So from receiving the order, sales expectations were communicated to the customer, transferred over to engineering, design was good quality, manufacturing was good quality, QC, radiation safety, all those things were addressed, and then the service tech was trained and knew exactly what the customer was expecting and was able to go on site, do the install. That's what we call a seamless install. So it's a closed feedback loop where service, quality, project management, engineering, and our assembly lead are all meeting on a weekly basis and discussing like, hey, this was a seamless install and then why, right? Like what worked, what didn't work. We're always having that conversation. So this is a driver for process improvement for us. So just a couple examples, right? We have ongoing quality inspection. We have 4 stages of quality. One of them being when we have the frame built and all the wiring set up. At that point, we will test all motion in the system. And it's just one of those things where if I was testing that at the end, when everything's fully assembled, which wire is it, right? So it makes it a lot easier to identify issues and then fix them at the root. That's one of the big things that we always drive is, hey, Jerry, I don't need you to fix the issue here in QC. I need you to look at where in the process it broke.
How did it happen?
Exactly, so that we can fix it where it needs to be fixed. So those are some of the things that we work on.
When you look at those seamless install things, and you know, it's like purchase order to invoice without having an issue, you're measuring the metrics and you're measuring a trend of improvement in that area?
Yes, so this is our 3rd year having that metric. It took some work to identify the proper metric. And yes, we're seeing a lot of improvements in that space. We don't do a blanket statement, right? So it's always, we look at each individual install and look at all the details there. So for example, if we have a shipment issue and actually we had a machine recently that got to the customer site during shipping and offloading the machine from the crate, they bumped the emergency stop off. But they were able to let us know ahead of time. So our technician showed up prepared, didn't miss a beat, right? Showed up with the necessary parts, did the replacement. It's a modular piece, so it's just one connector. You remove the plate and that's it. We were able to do the install with no delays.
So does that get classed as a seamless install?
That would be classed as a seamless install. So we measure.
It didn't cause any issues.
Exactly. And we measure, we try to make it realistic. We don't want to ding our team for things that are outside of our control, right? Like if the truck driving the machine gets in a car crash, why would that be on us, right?
Kind of not on you,
Exactly. So our goal is to show up prepared and give the customer the best experience and to not delay the time of install that it takes.
So and if the truck does get in a crash, you need to know about it and be ready to go and go and get to the next point. You talked a bit about quality. There are several quality gates as you go through the process.
Yes.
That's really an important element. I guess the last one of those is with customer on site, or?
So the last one of those, we have two paths, whether it's a custom system or a standard system. If it's a standard system, typically the customer won't be involved, but our team is focused on using the machine as our customer will use it. Okay. So our QC team, their last step is to touch base with sales and understand what samples are they looking at. Ideally, do we have the customer sample here?
Perfect.
What sales images were shared with them? Was it a stitched image? Was it this, that, whatever that is? And they're trying to recreate the experience the user will have at the end. Typically not involving the customer, but it is thinking like the customer.
Yeah.
If it's a custom system, then yes, the customer will either be on site or remote, and we will do, during the process, we'll develop a factory acceptance test, and then we'll run through that test. At that point, we'll determine is this a pass, is this a fail, and then the customer has the ability, they actually need to sign off before we ship the system.
Yeah. So you've got a reputation for being able to do these custom systems, to be able to solve problems. You've got to be as proud of those when they go out of the door as you are of your regular stuff. How do you ensure they are as top-notch quality as a standard product that you've been able to hone process on?
So it all goes back to the way we think about our custom systems. We're never really working from scratch completely. We like to think of it as modules. So each module is already like a full kit that has wiring schematics, bill of materials, mechanical designs, CAD drawings, all these things. And then quality questions, for example, like quality checklist questions associated with this particular module. So as much as possible, these modules are built to be interchangeable and compatible with everything else. So it's never that we're completely starting from scratch. Oftentimes we have a new addition, and those are the exciting parts of the projects typically for us. We love building the new stuff, we love figuring out new things, but because all the other things are so well documented and so like stress tested and all these things, then we can focus all our resources into developing a proper new module. And then we have a very extensive stress testing process that we run the machines through, so it'll be at the software team, that level, and then the mechanical team, the PLC team, and then fully at the end. So we have multiple redundancies that make sure that we're still shipping with the same quality as a standard system.
And then you can focus on the solution. You don't have to focus on the process. Last question: when we look at what's going on with the JV and the desire to bring manufacturing back here, do you feel that, it feels to me like you've got many of the systems that a larger company would have anyway, but do you feel like what you've got is scalable, and do you see scaling that at speed as being an exciting challenge or something that's going to be really difficult?
Yeah, well, it can be both, right? It can be exciting and difficult.
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of those things where documentation for us always has to be an asset and not an obstacle. We talk about that, like larger corporations will have a level of documentation that more often than not becomes an obstacle rather than an asset. For us, the purpose of documentation is, does it protect our customers? Does it protect us? Does it allow us to build work in a better, faster, easier way, right? Like if it doesn't fulfill any of these categories that are actually helping us move forward, then we're not working with that. So it is an exciting challenge. I don't have issues. Like, one of the things that I think is very unique about us is that from when I first started, it was a 5-10 person company, we were talking about scalability. Our systems are always built with scalability in mind. And not only have we done the planning for what we need this year, but we're planning 5-10 years ahead. And I already know what the next version of the manufacturing team is going to look like, right? So we've talked about, okay, when we're at this level of manufacturing, these number of machines, how do we change our current processes to fit that process? So we're always working towards that. So it's a matter of how quickly are we going to get there? That's sometimes where the challenge is, right? So I think it's going to be fun. It's one of those things that will push us and make us better, and those are the things that stretch us and
and allow you to grow. Absolutely. And speaking of growth, you mentioned that you were here when it was a 5-person company. Talk me a little bit through your journey, because you've kind of been through every department, starting pretty much on the factory floor, and that is so important when you're the person in charge of operational excellence now.
I think it was like maybe 10 or 11 of us when I started.
Okay.
But still fairly small compared to where we are now. So it's been 9 years almost. 9 years in October. And yes, I started as a manufacturing engineer focusing on standardizing processes and documenting things. So that always, I mean, if you think about my role now and that being my initial task, I started to see what are the challenges, how are assemblers actually using this information, how to make it in a way, like one of the issues with documentation, and this is a bridge that you have to build between engineering and assembly, is if they're not going to use it, it's useless documentation, right? So you need to, who's your target audience, use the language that they understand, make it accessible for them so that they know what to build, how to use it. So I started from there and really working with the team on standardizing processes. Then it kind of I became the quality person in charge. So my evolution has been very varied as well. So manufacturing and then manufacturing management, quality, then I did service as well. I helped develop the scalable system that we have for the service organization. The onboarding platform that we use is still the same with some improvements, obviously with our changes to the software and the machines and all that. And from service, I went to business development, and I've been in all departments of the company at this point. So I get to understand how all the pieces work together. And I think that's become invaluable in my role.
Yeah, being a GM that actually has all that experience is huge. But, you know, from my point of view, I qualified as an engineer. Being a GM that has that kind of engineering thought process where you're always looking to improve processes, whether that be a manufacturing process or a business process, that makes a lot of difference.
Yes, and if you think of a company is no different than a machine, right? So I'm a mechanical engineer by training, so it's no different than these are the inputs, what are the outputs that I'm looking for, what are the pieces, how is everything working together to get us to where we need to be.
And get the right quality solution and get that delivered.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time. Pleasure to chat, and look forward to doing so soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.